Okay, so welcome. Welcome to Journey to Mental Health, to Mental Wellness with Psilocybin. It's a wisdom workshop, and it has again been put together by me, Divina. I'm currently based out of San Cristobal de las Casas, Chiapas, in Mexico. So I live in the southernmost part of Mexico. I'm a few hours away from Guatemala. I've been in Mexico 2 years, and I've been in San Cristobal for 1 year. As I said earlier, I'm a spiritual mentor, ceremony space holder, and I created this workshop as a resource to inform seekers about the healing power of psilocybin. So some of the things that we're going to be covering today will be: what does history show us about the use of psilocybin? Who is Maria Sabina, and how did her work influence the use of psilocybin in the West? How can psilocybin positively impact your mental health and spiritual well-being? Are there any preparations that you should make before a psilocybin journey? What are the differences between a micro, moderate, and high dose of psilocybin? And when do you need a guide? And what should you look for in a guide? The structure of the workshop will be, we'll go through some history, we'll talk about Maria Sabina, we're gonna speak a little bit on science and mushrooms, the journey into psilocybin, what that looks like, what that might feel like, some of the effects, and then choosing a guide. I wanna say, first and foremost, it's important for me to say the things that I am not. I am not a doctor, I am not a psychologist, I am not a medical professional. I am sharing this wisdom with you as wisdom that has been passed down to me from the mushrooms themselves, first of all, and secondly, from those that I have learned from. And so this wisdom and the way that I'm sharing in this workshop is based profoundly on shamanism. So let's talk about some of the history. Interestingly enough, there's not a whole lot that scientists and archaeologists know and share about the history of psilocybin. So there's archaeological evidence suggesting the use of psilocybin up to 10,000 years ago in Australia. There's murals painted in caves with figures like humans that have mushroom heads. There are similar paintings and murals in Africa dating back to 7,000 years ago. And toadstool cave paintings dated 6,000 years ago in Spain. The very first written record of hallucinogenic mushrooms appears in the Florentine Codex in the 1500s. And this record elaborates on the use of flesh of the gods, which is what the Aztecs referred to psilocybin as. Although the exact use of psilocybin is unknown, quotation marks, there is reason to believe that these mushrooms were used for religious and healing purposes. And so I say quotation marks because in modern day science, there's always a lot of doubt, right? There has to be so many amount of trials and so much proof before they can back it. But for me, in my spiritual belief and what I've seen and felt, is that our ancestors always had a reason for the things that they did. And for the most part, they weren't, going to parties and doing mushrooms the way that a lot of times this medicine is used today. They were healing. They were healing their communities. They were healing the sick. They were doing rituals and praying for rain in the dry season. So there was a lot of intention, and most likely spiritual and religious intention, in the way that these mushrooms were used indigenously by our ancestors of the land. And so this takes us to Maria Sabina, the grandmother of psilocybin. Maria Sabina was born in 1894 in Huatla de Jimenez, Oaxaca. So Oaxaca is like kind of a central state of Mexico, although it goes all the way into the coastline. And Maria Sabina was a Mazatec shaman. She was born into the lineage of well-known healers on her paternal side. So her father, her grandfather on her father's side were considered curanderos in the Mazatec community. And curandero is a word that signifies a healer, someone who heals. And so she grew up watching her father, her grandfather heal her family and the people in the community with herbs, with plants, with flowers, and also using psilocybin. The Mazatec people have a long tradition of using medicinal plants because they have a deep connection to Mother Earth. And this is what guides them in the use of medicinal plants for divinatory and healing rituals. So the way that Maria Sabina learned to work with these plants, to work with psilocybin, was purely from a ceremonial and healing perspective. So all plants have spirits, and some of you may know this based off of what we shared earlier, but some of you may not. All plants have spirits. Really, everything has a spirit, but maybe that's a different workshop. So for now, we're going to focus on all plants have spirits. And so what does that mean? If you've heard of ayahuasca, this super potent psychedelic medicine that helps a lot of people, you may have heard to that specific plant medicine being referred to as mother ayahuasca or grandmother ayahuasca. And that is referring to the spirit of the plant, the spirit of ayahuasca that holds a spirit of a grandmother. And so if you think of your grandmother, what kind of emotions, what kind of thoughts or feelings come up when you think of your grandmother? Caring, warm, knowledgeable, a lot of wisdom because she's seen a lot of things. Maybe she always makes you your favorite meal when you see her. Very caring, very loving, very motherly energy. And so when we're speaking on psilocybin, the energy of psilocybin is playful. It's a playful, childlike energy. And so because of that, psilocybin was referred to by the Mazatec people as Los Niños Santos. And Los Niños Santos means the holy children. So after miraculously healing her sister, Maria Sabina became known throughout her community for her work as a curandera, clairvoyant, and poet. She held velada rituals, and velada rituals were spiritual ceremonies using the holy children as a healing tool to treat emotional problems, addictions, and even fights between families. So we see again, up until 1894, this medicine, psilocybin, was only used for healing purposes. It was used to heal and to cure sick people, whether physical sicknesses or emotional or mental sicknesses in the community. And so the change came in 1957. Maria Sabina was visited by a foreigner from the West named Robert Gordon. And after sitting with her in a velada that was very powerful, he returned to the West and published a photo essay in the Life magazine, basically describing his experience and everything that he went through with Maria in the mountains of Oaxaca. And so what this did was unintentionally cause an immense amount of publicity to be brought into Sabina's village. Everyone heard about what psilocybin could do, and they wanted to try it. And so the publicity actually was disastrous for Maria Sabina and the Mazatec community. because it was so many foreigners coming in and wanting to try the medicine and not using it in the way that it had traditionally been honored and been used. And so eventually the people started blaming her. They started to blame her for the misfortune of the village and defiling this sacred ritual that had been in their communities and in their traditions for many, many years. Her house was burned down, her home was frequently raided, and she was actually arrested at one point, being accused of selling drugs to foreigners. So up until this point in history, again, before Watson, no one had used Los Niños Santos just to quote unquote meet God. They had only ever been taken so that the sick could heal. So in ceremony and for healing purposes. And so that began psilocybin in the way that we've heard about it in the 60s and 70s and 80s. And so before we kind of make this transition into modern day use and ideas around psilocybin, I found this quote from Maria Sabina. Although she was not able to read or write, her words and her knowledge and her wisdom was captured by those who came to see her. And some of it is still with us today, which I think is really, really beautiful. There is a world beyond ours. The sacred mushroom takes me by the hand and takes me to the world where everything is known. When I return from the journey, I say what they have told me and what they have shown me. I am the woman who was born alone. I am the woman who fell alone. I am the woman who waits. I am the woman who looks inside. I am the sacred swimmer. So these are Maria Sabina's own words describing what the psilocybin journeys, what that medicine was teaching her and how she was working with them. Science and shrooms. What has science shown us? So now that we're going to the other side of this coin, right? We've spoken about the deep spiritual history around psilocybin. Chemistry, research, and effects. Psilocin is the active form of the psilocybin compound. It's what's present in psilocybin that gives people the psychedelic effects that they experience. Research. Research began in the 1950s. So Watson went to visit Maria Sabina in 1957. And so after that, research began because that was the big opening of psilocybin into Western society, into Western culture. Effects. We're also going to talk about some of the effects, such as euphoria, changes in perception, and powerful spiritual experiences. Do we have any questions so far? Or is everyone following me? We feel good? Yeah, okay. So science and shrooms, the chemistry of psilocybin. So what does it do to your brain? Basically is what everyone wants to know. Psilocybin has the ability to elevate a personality quality known as openness, which encompasses sensitivity, imagination, and an appreciation for the values and viewpoints of others. Psilocybin also increases neuroplasticity, which is the brain's ability to create new connections. Several studies have shown that psilocybin and other psychedelics can induce or increase neuroplasticity. And that's one that we hear a lot about. People say things like psilocybin changes your brain, and that's what it refers to, is the ability for psilocybin to increase neuroplasticity, which enables you, enables you to release ideas and beliefs that have been ingrained in your psyche, self-limiting beliefs, things like excuse me, self-limiting beliefs and things that are ultimately holding you back from your truest self, from stepping into your power. And so psilocybin has the ability to not only help you release these things, but to fill that space with what it is that you're actually wanting to integrate into your life, into your being, whether that be more self-love, connection to nature, empathy. The list is extensive. And so an increase in neuroplasticity enhances the brain's capacity to change, basically, to become more adaptive and to break out of habits and negative thought patterns. Research. So there's been quite a bit of research. As of October 2023, over 130 clinical trials have been posted for studies involving psilocybin as a treatment for multiple conditions, ranging from depression, PTSD, OCD, Parkinson's disease, cancer, alcoholism, smoking cessation, Alzheimer's, eating disorders, and even more. Studies have shown that psilocybin therapy is beneficial in relieving symptoms of treatment-resistant depression and other mental health disorders. Psilocybin has also shown effectiveness at easing fear and anxiety in people with terminal illness. So that part about terminal illness is really important, because what psilocybin does, depending on the dosage, depending on the journey, is it opens you up to this idea that there is nothing to fear after death. And this is something that there has been, movies and videos made on the dissolution of fear that humans generally tend to have when they're facing a terminal illness, and how psilocybin helps to dissolve that fear and fill it with a sense of peace for what is unknown, for what is to come after this lifetime. And so for me, that is one of the most beautiful aspects of working with this medicine, because it really creates a connection to nature in a way that allows us to live more peaceful lives. And so psychedelic effects. Some of the psychedelic effects that you might experience: altered perception of reality, which can be changes in visual and auditory perception. Colors might appear more vivid, patterns emerging on surfaces, sounds being distorted or even more profound. Enhanced emotional sensitivity, including amplified emotions, leading to deep feelings of joy, empathy, a sense of connection, which I spoke about earlier, to others, to those around you, to nature, or to the universe. Time dilation, this kind of sensation of time slowing down or time speeding up, with minutes feeling like hours and hours feeling like minutes. And ego death or ego dissolution, which is also something that you would hear a lot about in the psychedelic community. At higher doses of psilocybin, the boundaries between self and the outside world begin to dissolve. And so this oftentimes leads to feelings of unity and interconnectedness with everything around you. So this idea and this feeling of like, wow, I'm not separate from that beautiful tree outside. I'm connected to this beautiful bird that's flying. Everything is connected. Wow, everything is so beautiful. Everything is so alive. I'm not alone. I am not doing this thing called life on my own because I'm surrounded by so much beauty and so much love that is a part of me. So, cognitive and spiritual effects. Deep introspection. Psilocybin often induces a heightened sense of introspection where you can reflect deeply on your life, your beliefs, your relationships, your experiences, which can then lead to new insights and perspectives. Mystical experiences. A lot of people report this encounter with God, which usually includes feelings of awe or wonder or a sense of the sacred. Again, this idea of connectedness where you begin to realize that God is not outside of yourself, that you are also connected to God, that you are innately a piece of God walking on this earth. And not only does it change perception, it also changes the way that you treat other people. If you believe that you are connected to everything and everyone, maybe you won't kill that bug. Maybe you'll take it and put it outside. Maybe you will be a little kinder to the grocery store cashier because now you have this profound, deepened sense of empathy for everything and everyone around you. Creative thinking. Psilocybin can inspire creative thoughts and ideas, making it easier to think outside of the box and explore new possibilities. Trauma healing. Psilocybin allows the reprocessing of traumatic memories. And so this is a big part of the work that I do with psilocybin with my clients, is helping them to work through traumas that have been hidden and locked away in their psyche. Oftentimes, working with psilocybin with intention in a ceremonial setting allows us to tap into the parts of our life experiences that have been locked away because they've been so difficult. And so there's a really beautiful opportunity to unlock and tap into these memories, but not in a traumatic way where you're reliving them, but in a way where you're able to release them, to work through them. Because remember, psilocybin is also changing your neuroplasticity, right? So as you're experiencing or remembering this memory that happened, you now are in a space mentally where you're able to experience it in a new way, and it changes how you come out of the experience, how you come out of the psilocybin journey, right? You feel differently about that experience than you did before. Killed less bugs. Yeah. Yeah, it's like this little tiny thing. Damon said I've actually killed less bugs and have been putting them outside. Some, not all. Sometimes the mosquitoes get me also. But it is, again, this idea that when we're so connected, we generally just have more care for other living beings because they're not outside of ourselves. They're a part of us. The same way you would have more care or kindness with your parents or your child, it kind of extends a lot further. Okay, inner child healing. This is also something that I practice with my clients, that we oftentimes do a lot of work around in our psilocybin ceremonies, because we all have our inner child, and oftentimes as adults, one, they get ignored, and two, there are still opportunities for us to give our inner child the things that they did not receive as children. And so what psilocybin does is heighten your sense of empathy and connection with yourself, which can allow you to reconnect to your inner child, this younger, vulnerable part of yourself that has been neglected or hurt in the past. And this reconnection is incredibly healing because it allows you to give yourself the things that you didn't receive in an environment, in a format where it's not just, maybe writing it down in a journal and forgetting about it. It's actually changing the brain chemistry, because when our inner children are wounded and hurt and ignored, oftentimes they begin to run our adult life, whether or not we're aware of it. And so some of the decisions we're making, how we're treating people, how we're reacting in situations, oftentimes that is the inner child acting out. But when you're able to connect to your inner child in a healthy, empathetic, in a healthy way that includes empathy, then you are able to no longer have your inner child calling the shots and making the decisions in your life, right? You're in charge because you're the adult, but the inner child is still there and now loved and nourished and full and able to play and remind you of laughter and fun and lightness, because both things are important. But your inner child is not just throwing a tantrum every time it doesn't get what it wants and calling the shots in your adult life. So physical sensations. What kind of physical sensations might you experience in a psilocybin journey? Physical sensations ranging from tingling to a sense of warmth or feeling energy flow through your body. These sensations can range from pleasurable to neutral to uncomfortable, depending on their intensity. Nausea and dizziness. Some individuals might experience mild physical comfort, such as nausea, dizziness, or stomach discomfort, especially at the beginning of the experience as the psilocybin is being taken into the body, absorbed by the body. So how do you prepare for a psilocybin journey? And is preparation even a thing? So some things you can do for preparation: set your intention, prepare your body, address any medical considerations, and mental preparations. So setting your intentions. Why is this important? Because when you clarify your purpose, when you clarify your purpose, whether that's healing, personal growth, or spiritual insight, it helps to guide your journey. Okay, sorry about that. So clarifying your purpose, whether that's healing, personal growth, or spiritual insights, can guide your experience. And basically, it gives you the roadmap of why you're sitting with this medicine and where you're going, what you're asking for when you're going into this experience. Preparing the body. So it's really important that you do your best to have a clean temple when you are journeying with psilocybin. And so our temple is our body. So how do you have a clear, clean temple, a pure temple, or as pure as you can? One, diet. In the days leading up to the journey, you're going to want to eat light, healthy meals. You're avoiding processed heavy foods. You're avoiding caffeine. You're avoiding alcohol. I also recommend to my clients that they not interact with any other psychedelic medicines. So you're basically on a fast, and that includes marijuana. So you're basically allowing your body to clear out any toxins before you go into this journey, because it will be more potent with less sludge in your physical being. You're also going to want to stay super hydrated in the days leading up to your journey, as well as fasting. All of my clients that sit with me for psilocybin journeys, we fast before the journey. So if it's going to be a morning journey, then we would have an early dinner the night before, maybe like 6 or 5 p.m. And then we sit with the mushrooms at 10 a.m., no breakfast, and go through the journey. Generally, depending on dosing, a journey can be anywhere from 6 to 8 hours long. So fasting is really helpful because one, it reduces nausea and it enhances the effects of the psilocybin when there's nothing else inside of your belly, inside of your digestive system that's taking away from this process that's happening as the psilocybin is being absorbed. So addressing any medical considerations, if you are taking antidepressants or psychiatric drugs that can interact with psilocybin, I always recommend to my clients that they speak with their doctor or medical professional. And mental preparations. So mindfulness and meditation are super helpful leading up to your journey. This can be 2 minutes in the morning, some deep belly breathing before you get out of breath, before you get out of bed, or if you literally, like if you have a previous meditation practice, then deepening into your practice before the days leading into your journey, because it helps you to stay grounded and centered during the experience, no matter where the psilocybin journey takes you. So dosage, we're going to talk a little bit about dosage on the next slide. Although it is important to note for preparation, even if you've done all the things, you set your intention, you fasted, you only ate and drank greens and green juice before your ceremony, and you've been meditating every day for a week, it's really important to remember that any journey with psychedelics, including and especially psilocybin, is an unpredictable journey. And of course, there are things that you can and should do to ensure your safety, to ensure that your environment, your set and setting are supporting what you're doing. But it's important to know that working with psychedelics, working with psilocybin, it's not something where we have control. And that's the point. It's to allow ourselves to surrender, to release control in a way that allows us to be open to receiving what it is that we're there for. Because sometimes the journey, the experience is not what we expected and always what we need. Especially if it is in a ceremonial environment where you have a clear intention, where you have a guide, where your set and setting has been prepared beforehand. And so although there are all of these ways to be prepared for the ceremony before, it's just important to remember to be able to take a deep breath and surrender to whatever the journey happens to be, even and especially if it's not what we expected. And so finding a guide. Why is it important to find a guide? Again, what I spoke about with set and setting. Set is your mindset. So a guide can help you, you have a conversation before your journey, and a guide can help you to say, okay, I recommend that you do 5 minutes of meditation every day for the next 10 days, and then we'll have our ceremony. This helps you to be in a healthy mental state before you embark on this journey. And in the case that you are anxious or stressed before sitting with psilocybin, a guide can help you to either make that decision of, okay, we should wait and push this ceremony back, or what tools do I have that I can share with you that can help to ease any emotional feelings of discomfort or fear that you might be experiencing. And setting, ensuring that you're in a safe and comfortable environment. So that can be indoors or outdoors, a setting that's free from interruptions with soft lighting, maybe music. Is really important that when you are journeying that you are in a safe space, and this is something that your guide will ensure you of. So some of my ceremony, some of the places that I guide my clients through ceremony have been, I have a space in the mountains of Oaxaca. And so it's a cabin and it's literally hidden in the mountains. There's a river, there's a meadow, and that's where we go. No one is around. The sound of nature, the sound of the birds and the running water is the backdrop. And it's protected energetically, spiritually, and physically because I'm there to uphold the integrity of the space that we've created for their journey. And so this is a conversation that delves into the shamanic realms of working with psychedelics and working with psilocybin, because there is an aspect where you are traveling to another realm spiritually and psychologically. You know, you're not physically here in this body. And so having someone that can ensure the safety of the space spiritually and energetically is something that's really important to me. And it's something that I offer to my clients. Also things like energy work. Energy work can be done during a psilocybin journey because you're so open. And so most of us know or have heard that the body holds the score. And so our body remembers the trauma of our lifetime, the things that have happened to us, and it stores it and tucks it away neatly. And so energy work during a psilocybin journey, when you're so open, allows the facilitator to help release some of these points of stagnant and stuck energy in your physical being while you're also doing spiritual and energetic work. Safety and comfort, we talked about that, and integration. So a really great thing that a guide is able to support you with is integration. And integration is important because depending again on the intention and the set and setting and the dosage, you can have a profound experience where you now feel or see or believe or experience the world very differently than you did before. And that experience, that after the weeks or months following a psilocybin journey, can oftentimes feel like, you know, you need someone to process this with. You feel differently. And so having someone who's grounded and experienced to be able to relate to be able to have these conversations with and say like, hey, I'm feeling this thing. I want to talk about it. I want to express it. I want to, you know, have some feedback on it is really, really helpful, as opposed to not having that support and going to our friends or our family members who have never experienced psilocybin, because it can often be this sensation of like, am I going crazy? Like, they don't understand what I'm trying to explain. I'm telling them I'm connected to all living beings and they're looking at me with a blank face. So having someone who understands can be super, super supportive and helpful in the integration process. So just a note on dosages. If you've ever wondered what the difference between a microdose, a macrodose, a high dose, a low dose is, this is a nice little guide that describes not only the dosages, but what you can expect from each dosage. So if you were doing a microdose, that would be anywhere from 0.1 to 0.3 grams. And that would be barely noticeable. That would be something that microdosing is usually done like 3 to 4 days out of the week. And then the remaining days you wouldn't microdose, but it does have an effect. It's a slower long-term effect, but it does things like enhance creativity, focus, and mood. A low dose, mild perceptual changes, introspection, and a low dose would be zero point 0.5 to 1 gram. And you may see mild visual effects and enhanced senses, but again, that depends on, did you eat before you microdose? Is your stomach already digesting food? What is your health? What is your physical being like? And that affects what you would experience with such a low dose. So a moderate dose is 1 to 2.5 grams with full psychedelic experience and noticeable effects. Yes, also on strain. Absolutely, Damon. The strain of the psilocybin affects what you experience when you take it, right? Because we have higher strains than others. We have softer strains than others. I'm not super familiar with American strains of mushrooms because I live in Mexico and my mushrooms come from the mountains. So they're wild grown, really potent mushrooms. But when they're processed and like put into pills and stuff like that, it's a whole different conversation. So moderate dosing, 1 to 2.5 grams, full psychedelic experience with noticeable effects, more pronounced visual and auditory changes. A higher dose would be going into 3.3 grams to 5 grams, pardon me, with a profound transformative experience, intense visual and auditory hallucinations, strong emotional experiences, and alterations in perception. And then a heroic dose is what they consider 5 grams or above. So deeply transformative or shamanic experience, alters the consciousness. It can be this idea of ego death or ego dissolution, and the potential for out-of-body experiences. So choosing a guide, where to find a guide is often the first question that comes up. And so I always recommend your personal network. Ask your friends, ask people that you trust, and see if they have ever experienced mushrooms, who they experienced mushrooms with, where they got those mushrooms from. Your personal network oftentimes might have some referrals that you didn't even know existed. So that's a really good place to start. Another place to find a guide is online communities. And so that can be Facebook groups, Instagram. Obviously, when it comes to social networks and communities, you're going to want to do your research. You're going to want to ask questions. Oftentimes, the person with the prettiest pictures might not be the most experienced or the most in alignment for you. So do your due diligence when using social media as a resource to find a ceremony guide. Psychedelic retreats. So this is a really good one because oftentimes not only is there a container, right? Because you're not going to go on a retreat for one day. There's a container, so you're there for 4, 5, 6 days, and there's prep intention setting before you actually sit with the mushrooms. There's the journey that has been created with safety and comfort in mind, set and setting. And then there's the integration. So it's all of those things compiled into one week or one session of days, however many days it might be. And so that's really supportive because one, retreats are nice. And also, two, it provides you with all of the things in one space, oftentimes outside of your city, outside of your local city, outside of your local state. So you get to experience a beautiful place, you get to experience a new surrounding, and you get to be held throughout all parts of your journey, the preparation, the journey itself, and the integration. And so some things to consider when you find a guide, or maybe someone recommends a guide to you, or you found them on an online community. Experience and background, approach and philosophy, preparation and integration, logistics and practicalities, safety and ethics, compatibility, and costs and commitment. So for experience and background, some of those questions could be, what is your background in working with psilocybin? How long have you been guiding psilocybin journeys? For approach and philosophy, some questions could be, how are you going to tailor this experience, this journey to my individual needs? What is your approach to challenging or difficult experiences? Preparation and integration. How do you help participants prepare for the journey? So the preparation beforehand. What does your integration process look like? What does it include? Do you provide me with ongoing support after my psilocybin journey, or is that the last time I'm going to see you? Logistics and practicalities. Where do the sessions take place? How long will the session last? What do I need to do beforehand? What kind of mushrooms will we be working with? What dosage do you recommend for my journey? Safety and ethics. How do you ensure my safety during this journey? Do you have any medical screening processes? Compatibility. How do you ensure that we're a good fit to work together? And can we meet? So whether it's a physical meeting, which I do recommend if that's at all possible, to meet your guide for a cup of coffee or, a lunch sandwich or an ice cream cone, whatever you want to do, but to have the opportunity to be with them energetically is really important, because it allows you to feel how your being feels with them, just in general, just on a regular level, much less or before you decide to, experience this vulnerable journey with them. This is something that is really important because oftentimes we're so much in our thinking mind, we're so much in our masculine that we're checking off all the boxes, and maybe this person checks off all the boxes, but when you meet them in person, when you see them, when you feel them, you get a knot in your stomach. And what I teach my clients is that knot is all you need. It doesn't matter if they check off all the boxes. Listen to what your body feels when you're in community with another being, and it will tell you a lot. Costs and commitments. So you're going to want to find out about their fees. What do their costs include? Is there a cancellation or a refund policy? And what is their policy on confidentiality?